This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I am here today with a couple of folks from Burrowing Owl in the Okanagan. We are speaking today with Kerri and Stephen, who are going to give us a little bit of insight into what's been going on at Burrowing Owl since the very last time we interviewed Chris from Burrowing Owl some 4 years ago. Chris being Kerri's brother.
Indeed.
So what's been happening?
So what's been happening since 2016? Well, not too much, other than we've invested in a few new vineyards in the South Okanagan, with the goal of being able to expand our production over the next 5 to 10 years. We've acquired about 25 acres of vineyard in the Osoyoos, on the east bench of Osoyoos Lake. Focusing on red varietals, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Syrah, and Malbec. In addition, in the last 4 years, we've undergone a cellar expansion. We've added about 7,500 square feet to our cellar. We've added a second pneumatic press for our whites, making harvest time a little smoother.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
That's been a nice addition. Mm-hmm. The cellar expansion has allowed us to add some hospitality space at the winery for special events and functions. What else have we done, Steve? Oh, and then of course we have invested significantly in our solar electric installation. We now have close to 600 solar electric panels, generating enough electricity to power about 25 average size Canadian homes per year. So while we're not yet at a net zero level with our power consumption, we're with our installations over the next few years, we hope to be net zero within a few years.
Fantastic. And how have the last 4 vintages been to you?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic, to tell you the truth. You know, going back 4 years, I guess we're talking about 2016.
Yes, yeah.
And 2016 was the warmest of those 4 years. Sort of one of those exceptional growing seasons in terms of, you know, producing the quality grapes that have allowed us to build a reputation for producing fine wines.
You were saying it was a warmer vintage. Have you seen the impact of climate change upon things at Burrowing Owl?
Mm-hmm. Well, we've definitely done a few things in the last 4 or 5 years to mitigate future impact of climate change. So in the South Okanagan, the types of things that we are concerned about are those extreme weather conditions that climate change seems to be causing. In some areas it may be rains and flooding. For us in the Okanagan, it's drought conditions. So water conservation is one of the biggest concerns among vineyards and wineries in the South Okanagan. So we have invested heavily in our irrigation systems and our water management systems to ensure that we are using as little water as possible. So throughout our vineyard, we have computerized water probes where we are continually measuring the actual moisture in the soil to ensure that we are only watering when absolutely necessary. Right. It's never done on guesswork, and it's never done on a visual sort of just assumption. Well, we make sure that we're referring to the science of our data to water only when necessary. We have converted all of our lines to drip irrigation. And then in addition to that, the other thing that is a bit of a concern from time to time, especially this time of year in the fall, are when the temperatures drop down below normal. So we've installed several frost fans now, and the intention of the frost fans is really when the temperature gets down below about 4 or 3 degrees Celsius, the frost fans come on and really just circulate the air to pull the cool air off the ground floor, or off the ground, if you will, and circulate the warmer air so that the effects of frost are not felt on the vines.
Oh, we know all about that over here in Niagara. It's, yes. And you were talking about the 2016 vintage being incredibly warm. How have 17, 18 and 19 been to you?
17 a little bit, just a slight bit cooler. You know, still absolutely enough heat and sunshine to ripen our big reds by all means and produce wines that are layered and complex.
Yes.
18, you know, we have really just had the whites to
Yeah.
sort of evaluate the wines on. Just the 18 reds have not been released yet, but we're very much looking forward to the 18 wines, since 18 was such a bumper crop for us, actually. A beautiful amount of gorgeous fruit that came in last year. So things to look forward to, really, in a lot of ways.
And how is the fruit that's still on the vines looking right now this year?
Fantastic. Fantastic, to tell you the truth. You know, when we left, being in Toronto at the moment, you know, we had a touch of Merlot that was most likely picked during our travels, which was just plump and beautiful looking. And looking forward to most likely those Cabernet grapes, following after the Syrah, that is, coming in. And having walked into those vineyards on tours quite recently, they're looking gorgeous.
Looking at current vintages, when do you usually begin your harvest and end your harvest?
So we typically start harvest early September. Pinot Gris off our Black Sage Bench Vineyard in Oliver typically is off by, or starts coming off about the middle of September. And our Sauvignon Blanc from our Kerri site typically starts coming off the two of them can go back and forth. Some years it's one ahead of the other. This year actually the Sauvignon Blanc came in a little bit before the Pinot Gris. So early September and harvest, we usually end up about the middle of November. And I think if I can just add to what Steve was saying too, I think it's no secret that we definitely had forest fires in 17
Of course, yes, yeah.
And so we now have the evidence in the wines that we have that we certainly don't have any concerns with any of the issues that the forest fires brought. And in fact, because we were not close to the source of the fires, we did have some smoke, but the silver lining was that the temperatures were just brought down a couple of degrees, which actually slowed down the ripening a little bit, which was a good thing. 2018 August was a very hot August, and the grapes were actually ripening at a fairly quick pace.
Oh, right.
And so, as I said, there was a silver lining in that having a bit of a smoke cover did drop the degree temperature a little bit. And
That certainly is a silver lining, yes.
Down ripening. So again, we were able to extend harvest and have a little longer hang time. Typically when the fires have happened around us, it hasn't been in the near vicinity, it's been sort of in the north or south in Washington, and so not an immediate concern for our vines.
So I knew it was a real concern for some grape growers. But,
for some in the north of the Okanagan,
yes,
and
And in addition to that too, as well, is the silver lining of beautiful weather in the autumn. So we've had just last year in particular, just such a spectacular autumn of sunlight and cool nights. So you had the development of the acidity in the grapes, and you had that phenolic development in the grapes themselves as well.
Speaking of acidity, it was quite some time since I had tasted your Chardonnay, and I found the Chardonnay today to be just such a beautiful example of a very contemporary Chardonnay, and I found a consistency throughout all of your wines, but the Chardonnay I have seen change slightly stylistically over the years. Would that be a fair enough observation?
I think so. In the past, when we first started making Chardonnay, our technique was to use 100% barrel fermentation.
Right.
And so there was definitely a heavier oaky component and flavor profile to the wines. I think with the consumers' taste moving towards unoaked Chardonnay, some still preferring their oak Chardonnay, our biggest goal has really to create a Chardonnay where the oak is beautifully integrated and there's an elegance to the wine. And so therefore over the years we've shifted from 100% fermentation in oak barrel to largely a 50% fermentation in stainless steel and a 50% fermentation in oak to ensure we're maintaining the beautiful, bright fruit flavors from the stainless fermentation and getting those savory notes as well from the oak fermentation.
I think there's a wonderful balance going on in that wine. I think you managed to capture both sides of the coin, shall we say. It's most impressive to taste today.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much for joining us at Good Food Revolution today. We really appreciate your time and your wines. Always a pleasure to taste some Burrowing Owl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye for now.